I'm going to explain sex tourism. First of all, there's prostitutes everywhere. There's no need to travel to a different country to find a prostitute. So men can find prostitutes in North America, South America, Central America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia, anywhere. But prostitutes are usually more expensive in richer countries and cheaper in poorer countries, just like most other goods and services. And that is one of the reasons why sex tourism exists. So just like corporations prefer to manufacture their goods in places where wages are lower, which is why the manufacturing centers of Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Hamilton have gone down the drain since the 1970s, a lot of men would prefer to pay less money for prostitutes, less money for more attractive women. So, for example, here's an example. Now, I'll take the example of Singapore and Indonesia. Singapore and Indonesia, they're neighboring countries in Southeast Asia. Singapore is on the southern end of the Malaysian peninsula, the Malay Peninsula, and Indonesia is just right across the strait from Singapore. Now, in particular, there's a place called Batam Island in Indonesia, which is just across the strait from Singapore, and this area is apparently a sex tourist destination for Singaporean men. Now, the information that I got about this particular location comes from a news report or documentary that seems to have been made around 2004-2005. In the documentary or report, one of the men who was a sex tourist who was interviewed, quote-unquote sex tourist, he said that prostitutes cost $70 to $150 in Singapore and $20 to $30 in Batam Island, Indonesia. Now, to travel from Singapore to Batam by boat, there's ferries that operate between the two countries, so it takes about 25 to 45 minutes, and it costs about $20 one way, $25 for a round trip. The hotels in Batam, based on what I saw, cost about $15 a night for some of the cheaper ones, whereas in Singapore, the cheaper hotels seem to go for around $35 a night. So let's say a man in Singapore pays 7 prostitutes, and it costs him $70 for each one of them. That adds up to $490. If he's paying the more hot ones on the higher end of the price scale, $150 each, he's paying a total of $1,050 for 7 prostitutes. If you add a $35 hotel room to the price, one of the lower end hotels, let's say he takes the prostitutes to one of the cheaper hotels in Singapore, he pays for a room for each time, and that's 7 times, that's $245. So if he's paying the cheap prostitutes, he's spending a total of $735. If he's paying the more expensive ones, that's a total of $1,295. On the other hand, if the same man from Singapore goes to Batam in Indonesia, he's paying $25 for a round trip for the ferry. Takes him 25 to 45 minutes to get across, which is shorter than driving across many cities in bad traffic. So you go from one side of a big city to another, it might take 2 hours or more, depending on the traffic. Now let's say the Singaporean man stays in Batam for a week. He gets a hotel. He pays about $50 a night. 7 days, that's $105. Then let's say he pays for a girl every night. He pays a hooker every night. If each one costs him $20, that's $140 for 7 girls. If each one costs $30, he'll pay $210. Add that all up, and you have maybe $340, including the ferry, getting there and back, getting from Singapore to Batam and back, the hotel for a week, and 7 different girls. Now that's less than that's less than what it costs to pay for an equal number of prostitutes in Singapore, minus without even paying for a hotel or anything. So, and in addition, when the man from Singapore goes to Indonesia, the cost of food, drinks, and local transportation and so on is probably much cheaper than it is in Singapore, because Indonesia is a developing country, Singapore is a rich, quote-unquote, rich country. So usually the cost of living in wealthier countries is much higher than the cost of living in developing countries. So overall, that probably explains why men from Singapore would go to Indonesia, or go to the nearby part of Indonesia, if they're going to be paying for sex, because it's just cheaper for them. Or if you add up the price, I mean, if you're talking about one girl in Singapore, maybe it might be cheaper to pay for just one prostitute in Singapore, but over the long run, if you add up the prices together, then eventually it becomes like if he's talking about multiple girls, over time it adds up to where it's cheaper to go to Singapore, Indonesia from Singapore, even if you add on the transportation cost and you add on the hotel and everything. So